Good afternoon, First Presbyterian Church family. I hope this finds you well on Thursday, May 12th. It's hard to believe that Thursday last week, our group was taken by bus to the top of the Mount of Olives, and we walked down various sites on the way down and then up into the city. An amazing time. The previous Thursday, we went to see the Sermon on the Mountain. And from there, we walked down, and we walked and saw two sites. The church, one's called the Church of the Primacy of Peter, and I'm going to refer to that later, as well as the Church of the Loaves and the Fishes, there on the shores of the Sea or Lake of Galilee. And now I'm back here in Mesquite. I want to pick up our series that I began before I left, looking at those post-resurrection appearances in these weeks of the Easter season, which began with the celebration of Easter and will continue until Pentecost at the beginning of June. One of the images that I used was of a house, a way of places that we visit, and using a parallel to that. Now, I've changed it because my last two Thursdays I was doing other recordings from Israel and the Palestinian National Authority, but I want to resume to that, and I want to talk about the eating room, either a breakfast room and or a dining room. Now, I don't know how the setup is in your house. You may have the eat-in kitchen, the breakfast nook. In our house, growing up in Charlotte, we ate in the den. The kitchen was right next to it, and our eating space was actually in the den. We had a dining room as well, and but I want to talk both of those spaces. A breakfast room or an eating nook or eat-in kitchen area, of course, typically less formal, and it's a place where often very intimate conversation can take place. But also it can take place in a dining room. If you have some folks over, especially if you're catching up with people, and the conversation after dinner can continue deeper and deeper. I'm even thinking of some of the TV shows I've seen where after a dinner, usually the ladies adjourn. I'm thinking like Downton Abbey. If the ladies adjourn to a room, but they have their kind of intimate talk, and then the men have their cigars and brandy and have some serious conversation. A lot of serious conversation can take place over the table. I think of that in terms of two meals that were celebrated. One is the road to Emmaus, where the disciples had been walking, and it was there when they met Jesus that they had walked with him, he talked with them, and then in the breaking of the bread, they recognized him. And before they were sharing their grief, they said, have you heard Jesus has been killed? And like, oh, well, tell me all about it, which I think is kind of funny in a way. Because as Jesus himself, he suppressed the laugh. Maybe there's some grief in your life that you need to share with the Lord. Maybe it is a loss, and there are people I know who have had losses over the past year, 18 months in their family. Maybe it's the loss of a circumstance, a situation. Something has come to an end. It's something, that you can bring to the Lord. Maybe it's an area of great confusion that you want to bring as well. Think of that as such. Years ago, my mother watched The Guiding Light. And I remember as a kid, there was this one character, Sarah McIntyre, and she was married to a very bad guy. He died. Then she was married to a good guy. He died. Married to a bad guy. I'll go into what happened to him. And then she later marries a nice guy. And then they wrote her character out. But I remember the third husband was actually trying to kill her. Just like her first husband was trying to gaslight her. But his third husband was trying to kill her, and there was the big deal where the guy comes to the rescue and they wrestle, and I think he goes over a cliff or something dramatic like that. The point was, when it was all said and done, brought back to Bert Bauer, who was the matriarch on the show. And I can't believe all this has happened, because I think it was Bert's son, Mike, that had helped her in that situation. And Bert said, well, let's just sit around the table and have a cup of coffee. Now, I laughed. I thought, okay, your husband has tried to kill you, and in the process, he's been killed so that you're safe, and you want to have a cup of coffee. We had a good chuckle with that. But the point was, around the table with Bert, you could share what was ever on your heart. And again, that time of grief is something you can bring to the Lord. The second appearance I want to bring in here is from the Gospel of John, believed to be the fourth appearance of the Lord. It's in the 21st chapter, and I'm not going to read. I'm going to summarize. This is when they are out there on the lake, on the Sea of Galilee, and of course, I'm thinking, I've been to it now. I've got a picture of it. And they've been out, and they haven't caught anything. So he said, throw your net on the other side of the boat, and they will catch some fish. And they did. And they realized, of course, first they thought it was just a man talking to them, and no, it really is the Lord. And they come aboard, eventually come their way in, and Jesus has prepared a breakfast for them. And there, 3 times he asks Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. The idea there behind that, the 3 times he could undo the 3 denials that he'd given of Jesus. At that site, there is a church, and that's what we saw. So I'm getting back to it. After the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitude Mount, walked down, and we were over there. We walked over. I can't remember, they drove us over, because I do know we walked down the hill. They picked us up at the bottom of the hill. But the primacy of Peter, and I've actually attached 2 pictures to this email that will be attached. And there is a church there. There's a big rock, and it's believed that rock was the rock on which Jesus served them the meal. Maybe that is the rock, and maybe it's not. But I'll tell you, when you're there in that building, at that place, and knowing that it has been honored as the rock on which he kind of laid out the meal for so long, it does bring a sense of awe and holiness to it. And so he is there. So it's there, and you think of Jesus meeting them, and you think of Peter's reinstatement. That's why it's called the primacy of Peter, because he's reinstated as the leader. In modern times, a statue has been built marking that, and that's the second picture that I'll have attached to the email. Coming to the table, different way that they were eating, but coming to a meal, and restoration was taking place. Sometimes over meals, we're making peace with somebody, either going out to eat at a restaurant, kind of a neutral place, or maybe at the home. Maybe there's someone with whom you need to reconcile, or maybe there's something with the Lord that you need to reconcile. Think of meeting Jesus at the table and having a meal and sharing a grief, or maybe over a meal, knowing where you've fallen short and knowing that he receives you. Something to think about. Let me conclude with this prayer. In the infinity of the skies In the free flashing of lightning, in whirling elemental winds, you are God. In the impenetrable mists of dark clouds, in the wild gusts of lashing rain, in the ageless rocks of the sea, you are God. Well, I bless you. You are in all things and contained by no thing. You are the life of all life and beyond every name. You are God, and in the eternal mystery, I praise you. Have a good day.